This is not your mother's middle-aged. No longer is waking up each day, living the wash, rinse, and repeat cycle acceptable. We have the life lessons, the relationships, the wins, and the losses with which to navigate to our highest self, without hesitation and without fear leading the way. We have been there and done that, and so we have so much to offer the world and each other. So join me on this journey, speaking to ordinary women doing extraordinary things for new insights, new ideas, new medical breakthroughs, and new life lessons. You will be inspired to find your best life here and now. My name is Wendy Charles Maguire, and this is your Second Wind podcast. Welcome, Second Winders. Today, I have a fabulous woman in front of me. Her name is Cindy Kennedy, and she's a wife, a mother of 3 adult women, and has been a nurse practitioner working in women's health for over 20 years, specializing and practicing gynecological health. Then out of nowhere, Cindy became a patient. A sudden wrist pain became the start of her ongoing journey to find answers to her failing health. And as a knowledgeable healthcare professional, Cindy sought out a multitude of doctors, none of whom could help her. And her illness became a mystery. After not accepting her various diagnoses, Cindy changed her course and set out to find her own health. Following her improvement in health, she left gynecology and opened up her own practice with her daughter for integrative health. And her motto with that was educate, advocate, and collaborate. And in this process, also, she started a podcast, and she brought many, many experts on and doctors, all of whom helped not only the listeners on their own health journey, but Cindy herself. So today, I welcome you, Cindy, and hopefully our internet connection will stay stable. I'm in
wonderful.
Pennsylvania and it's snowing. So anyway, so welcome so much to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for reaching out. This is great.
This is really great. And so we're going to talk about Cindy's health journey. And I found her through another Second Wind interview. And she said, "Oh, you must talk to my friend." And I started listening to her podcast, and it was so helpful to me. So I really appreciate that you did that. It was like a public service for everyone.
Well,
So
back in the day, the biggest problem was there wasn't credible information. So that's really the underlying reason why I chose to do podcasting.
Yeah. So let's talk about we can kind of call it a second wind, where you got the diagnosis that sent you over the edge, and you're like, no. And I want you to say what you said to them.
Yeah.
And then
it is
and
funny.
you got that, because it's great. And then you got that intuitive, a divine intervention, you said, with an intuitive download that sort of sent you on your journey. So why don't you build us up to that moment where you said that to that doctor?
Oh, I know. I really was at my wit's end, and I totally remember wrapped in a blanket saying on the phone to the primary care, "Listen, I am infected. I feel infected." And she was angry at me, and she said, "Well, I can give you 3 weeks of doxycycline." I was like, "Bring it on." So then she sent me off to a rheumatologist, and I said to him, and I had been on the doxy for probably the full 3 weeks. I said, "Wow, I'm 75% better." And he said, "Well, I don't know why." And so he goes on and he's squeezing my wrist, he's squeezing my leg, he's whatever. And he goes, "You have fibromyalgia." And I said, "Fibro my ass." That is the catch-all diagnoses. It doesn't have a root cause. And at that point, I said, there's something wrong. There's something deep down wrong. And, this was back about, where are we? 2011, 12, when this all began. There just wasn't
10 years
information.
ago. Yeah.
It's a long time ago. Yeah. I mean, I'm so much better now, but the point being is you're disgusted. You become disgusted with medicine. You become embarrassed that you're part of that, realm, because I didn't know any better. So I had to learn. I had to start from scratch because no one was really interested in figuring it out.
So your nudge was what?
So my nudge was, I just didn't want to give up. I could have really, quit working. At one point, it was funny because someone called me and said, I was talking to so-and-so, and they were talking to so-and-so that said that you're cutting down your hours because you have narcolepsy. Talk about the craziest things. Narcolepsy. No, I don't have narcolepsy. I was exhausted, but I wasn't falling asleep out of nowhere. And I just had a drive. This was not going to end my career. This was not going to make me feel like a failure. And so I continued on my path, and tried to find someone who would listen to me. I did find an integrative doctor who said, I really think it's an infection. And then the whole process of getting on antibiotics and adding multiple antibiotics together and trying to feel better. But I just was one that never did feel really great on antibiotics. And I had to really work at learning to support my gut health. And at one point I just said, I'm done with all this antibiotic stuff. I had a PICC line for IVs. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. And I just started re-establishing good gut health and eating as pristine as I could. And then at a later date, I did herbal treatments. And then as I just learned and I had more podcast guests, I realized, there's more people out there that could use services that aren't just conventional medicine. And that kind of swung me into, why don't I do this? Why don't I do this? And at one point, it was Thanksgiving. Was with my oldest daughter, who's a registered dietitian. And I put my hand on her shoulder and I just said, and that's where you come in. I didn't have a plan for it. I didn't have this kind of thought out process about how it was going to happen. I didn't have any of it. And it just kind of evolved.
On need.
It's kind of crazy. I can't believe it, being my own boss. I almost feel like I need to call myself sometimes and say, I'm running late. I have to call myself because I'm the boss. I don't know if I like that, but anyways, it's That's wonderful. Funny. We have a wonderful electronic medical records format. We can do in office. For me, Kara always works remotely because she's in Maryland, but or we can do remote. It's great. And I established a wellness center. And we see a lot of different things, and we work on detox. We have a infrared sauna. We have an infrared biomat. We do specialized yoga classes. We have additional practitioners with us. But I'll tell you, I always look at people now and I offer them hope. I think that's the biggest thing people need to hear. I hear you. I agree. There's a reason, and now we've got to search for it because no one searches. In conventional medicine, it's a diagnosis and a prescription. Yep. And unfortunately, even for constipation, it's a prescription. What happened to magnesium citrate? That'll cure anybody's constipation for the most part. Absolutely. But it's unfortunate. And the different areas of the country have wonderful functional and integrative health care. And where I am, I'm in Western Massachusetts. Yep.
Yeah.
People don't know and don't get it. And all of a sudden I go from being like, oh my God, gynecology, this is great, to now trying to encourage and educate people that there are other approaches to being healthy. Kind of crazy.
That I can't even imagine. You took like a given good job, but see, it was a series of events too after we talked. So it became more of a big business. So you were already kind of getting dismayed with what was going on. Like, it's sort of like there was a playbook and everything kind of fell in place for you to do this. And then selfishly, I am really glad you did this, because then when I didn't know what was wrong with me and trying to get someone to help me, it just didn't make sense why it just wasn't a cut and dry situation that I could just get the test and just get it done and just move forward and start healing. I had plenty of time to sit there, and I think I listened to almost all of your podcasts.
Oh wow,
and
that's a big thing.
Yeah, I had lots of time. I was going back and forth to New Jersey, helping my mother, and sitting in hospitals, just listen, put your earphones in and listen, and reading the books and finding some of the professionals you had on, and watching the documentary that everyone should watch is really important. So what we're talking about, if you haven't figured it out, is Lyme, but you didn't start with Lyme. You started with mold. Is that right?
Well, no, actually it was Lyme, but you
Lyme.
never,
Okay.
well, you know what, chicken or the egg? We can debate this type of situation. I had no idea. I about mold illness. It wasn't until we got established, we then started getting accounts with different companies who do functional testing, very different than just your regular blood draw or urinalysis. And I had an opportunity to do environmental toxin testing and mycotoxin or mold toxin testing. And I did it. And I couldn't believe the amount of glyphosate, which is in Roundup. And even if you're eating, completely
Organic.
clean, it's still even in our organic. But who knew, And then plastics, the plastics, I couldn't believe it. Now I've learned that, gosh, don't microwave anything in a plastic, and definitely don't store food in plastic, and get rid of the plastic straws and get your metal straw, all these different things that you just don't know about. And no one talks to you about that. And then the mycotoxin test came back, and that was even a bigger issue because people didn't know what to do with it. I even went to a naturopath, and she had gone through training, and she says, well, I don't even know if I believe in this. So I was.
Oh my gosh.
What do you mean you don't believe in this?
It's right it's on the paper. This is a thing.
Exactly. All you do, you know what? And when there's a lot of questions, what you do is you call the company and you get one of their consultants to explain it to you. You cannot pee out mycotoxins unless you have mycotoxins. Now, could there be some from food? Well, they've looked at studies and they're not convinced that what you're peeing out is from food. There are things that probably could contribute. Peanuts are kind of moldy, and my favorite pistachios are a little moldy. Coffee is terribly moldy, but it doesn't seem to, it could be. Most of the studies on mold are done with animals and their feed and how they get sick. And it's water damaged buildings. And after this, I said, well, if I'm positive, I'm going to test my husband. So I tested him. He was positive. So
Hmm.
the only thing we could get back to was one of the issues was a stinky front loader washing machine.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were some issues in the building that I worked in that was not taken care of. And we had multiple leaks. And really, for anybody listening that wants the quickest bit of information, is you have really a couple of days to have professional help to dry out a leak, a flooded basement, whatever, before you're going to get mold. So carpets have to go, the bottom of the drywall, all the wood. It's truly a nightmare. And I have to say right now, with my patients who have gone elsewhere, had other diagnoses, are not seeming to improve, I offer them mycotoxin testing. And I have to say that everyone but one, which probably is a dozen or more, have been positive. And when we go back and we start talking, it's like, oh, yeah, we did have, because what you're excreting today is not necessarily from yesterday. It can be from months or years ago. We don't know how long the body will store it, maybe forever, but it
Build
can
up.
really wreak havoc.
Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible. So Cindy, let's go back a little bit. Uh, what were your, what were your symptoms? What happened? You know, I
So
mentioned it in the beginning that you had wrist pain,
I
which is
did.
odd.
I had this crazy wrist pain just making my bed. It was odd. And and then it just became crushing fatigue, just crushing. And then it was sore throats and swollen glands. And it just was like a mishmash of multiple things. I didn't have the typical kind of roving joint pain from one place to another. I didn't. Uh, when it became much more obvious that we've got some bigger issues than just a little bit of wrist pain, my hands were so swollen. My
Mm.
fingers looked like sausages. And then I would get headaches and night sweats. And it wasn't, the typical night sweat. These were drenching. And I was up a couple times. And, it wasn't easy to figure out. So, it's, I I would go forward a little bit and say, okay, I'm going to see infectious disease. Well, they didn't know anything, they want to make sure I don't have HIV or anything of that nature. Lyme is
Right.
just not on their radar. And I really, in this area, it's still not. They think that anybody that gets diagnosed with Lyme is going to be cured 100%. There's no other problem. 3 weeks of antibiotics and you're fine. Close that case. And that's not what happens. The majority of people who have Lyme tests at a standard lab, it misses half of Lyme because it's requiring your body to make antibodies. And sometimes you're not making enough to be picked up, or sometimes your body has made nice with Lyme and it's not going to treat it like it's an infection. It's very, very odd, I have to say, learning all of this information. And you did start to mention, but you didn't say the title. The one documentary that is frightening but true is called Under Our Skin.
Mhm.
And that's where I've gotten people to really realize that it's really up to them to search for their answer and to not stop, because you can choose to just live and dwell in illness, or you can continue to move forward and find that person that'll help you. My husband and I, he would come with me, support me, and we would have that first visit with that new practitioner, and we would be like, yes, someone believes us, they're going to help. And then they'd run tests. I'd come back the next time, and it would be, it would make us terribly sad. At this point, well, we don't know. Gosh, you seem fine on
You seem fine.
paper.
You look fine.
You look good. Damn, you're the healthiest sick person I
Mhm.
know. And
Mhm.
maybe it's just stress. Maybe you need to work less. Maybe, and that it's like it was a constant feeling like no one cares. No one wants to invest the time. And one of the problems with investing the time is practitioners who decide to take insurance. And what happens is they have to see a volume of people on an everyday basis to keep their lights on. And so they cannot get paid for the time that's needed to care for people who have complex chronic illness. It's sad, but it's true. And so
A lot of out of pocket. It's a lot of out of pocket.
Oh,
It's
yes.
kind of getting crazy. In the beginning when they just had given me doxycycline, I'm like, oh, that's $13. No problem.
Yeah, I could do
and then
that.
the next batch of stuff comes along, and then it's in 1 week it's $1,500, and then the next week it's more, and then you have to order more stuff, and there's a huge approach that has to be taken, and it's not just a pill for 3 weeks and it's gone. And here at my summer place, one of the gentlemen that works here, who I've known for many, many years, he was diagnosed with Lyme around the same time I was. And when I called the shop today, I asked how he was doing. Oh, he's fine. He's back. He still can't lift his arms up over his head, and he feels really weak still. He was on antibiotics for 3 weeks. He's fine. They said he's cured. And I'm like, oh my,
Oh,
no, that can't be. I said that can't be. But we're in Pennsylvania right now.
oh, that's a big, big, big place.
It's a hot spot. And so I'm a little shocked that treatment is what he was given. I'm going to be calling him later, by the way.
Oh, I hope you do. I generally, I'll do here's the clincher. Okay. This is what kills me. Let's go back to I'm 75% better. And then the answer is, gee, I don't know why. So
right.
let's take a different diagnosis. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Wendy, you come to me. We're going to go back to my gynecology days. You come to me, you have frequency, burning on urination. You've got all the signs, and I treat you with a short course of antibiotics, because back in the day, and even now, you don't have to treat with extended antibiotics. So I treat you for 3 days, call you up and say, hey, Wendy, how you feeling? You're like, wow, I am better, but quote unquote, I'm only 75% better. And you know what I do? I give you more antibiotics for a longer treatment. I treat you now 7 days, maybe 10 days, call you up, and you're going to say to me, all my symptoms are gone. And I'm going to say, great, perfect. But when it comes to people who have these symptoms of Lyme, and everybody's told through Up to Date, which is a resource that all you have to do is treat for the 3 weeks. That's wrong. That's wrong. Lyme replicates itself in 3-week cycles. So you could miss a whole cycle. And that's why you get better, but it's not all gone. And it depends on how long ago you started with your symptoms. Unfortunately, not everybody gets a bullseye.
No, I didn't have bullseye, but it also depends on how many co-infections you have as well, right?
Exactly.
So my doctor, I said I don't really want to be on the antibiotics anymore. And she goes, well, the half-life is 27 months of everything. And I'm like, 27 months. Oh yeah, let's do math. That's like over 2 years.
The half-life of what?
I guess of the little boogers I'm trying to fight.
Oh,
are you asking me to remember anything? Because I can't remember anything.
That's okay. CRS, we all have it. We all have it, but I'll tell you, there's ways around that, because your body is working so hard, and it's any type of underlying infection causes inflammation. And part of working on inflammation is, diet and stress. And we talked about this before, binders, let's remove some of the garbage. Let's support the body. Let's support the mitochondria, which are the little powerhouses, the little ever ready battery and all the cells. We got to support all of these. It's not just about killing. Somebody wrote a book, Don't Kill My Lyme. I don't remember who it was. And I didn't understand what that meant, but I did learn, I figured it out, that it meant like the more you're killing, the sicker the person's getting, unless you've got them detoxifying. You got to get rid of it. Got to get rid of it. You got some good care going on, though. We talked about that, and I was very happy about your care.
Yeah, that made me feel better, because you don't really, there's so much out there, and you just don't know what you don't know, and what the right course is. And you can go and spend $30,000 was the amount of this one doctor that was willing to see me, with many, many trips to Florida, and $30,000.
There's another very well-known doctor that takes, I don't know, I think it's, last I heard, it's about like 15 grand as a retainer.
Yeah.
But
when you're so sick, and you said this so well in one of your podcasts, you said you got to the point where if someone said to you, well, if you stick a needle in your eye, if I stick this needle in your eye, I know it's going to make you feel better. You're like, here's my eyeball.
Yes.
Stick it in.
Stick the needle in my eye.
To do what it takes to feel better. And
But
no one knows. And no one knows what you're going through, because they cannot see it.
No, they don't get it. I've lost friends over this. Truly, they walked away.
Oh my God.
They just walked away. Thought I was just like, crazy. My mind, I was just.
Oh, she just wants attention. Is it one of those? Yeah.
Well, it just, I guess people become very uncomfortable, or really they're not capable of a good level of empathy. Wendy, I tell you, you don't realize it, but all of a sudden things become clearer in life. And you can say, oh, don't sweat the small stuff. Well, this is big stuff. This is big stuff. And the only way people who are having chronic issues, and I don't care if it's chronic joint issues, I don't care if it's medical things like cholesterol, diabetes, I don't care if it's an infectious thing like Lyme or other chronic things. It has to become clear to that person that it is going to take work, and they have to buy into that and do the work. I'm going to tell you that in our practice, one of the most upsetting issues for myself and Kara are the people that we are, and I just want people to get better. I want them to feel like it's working, but they don't feel better. The ones that don't feel better are the ones that are not doing the work. It is work. It's work to stay well.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I talk to people a lot about car maintenance. Go ahead, say why.
Why?
Because two things. Your medical insurance has become like car insurance. It'll pay when you're in a wreck, but it's not going to pay to help you be healthy. Or to,
oh my gosh, that's 100% right.
Okay,
that is such a good analogy.
Number two is if you're driving down a highway and your check
Mhm.
engine light goes on, you would 100% pull over, get that car serviced immediately. You would never reach underneath, pull down the wires and snip that check engine light wire and just keep going. Yet people do this to themselves, and all of a sudden it's a catastrophe.
You're
You
right.
know, you've got to
Mhm.
take ownership. This is one body, one life. And yeah, it's going to take supplements to stay well. It may take some medications, but it's going to take your participation in your own health care and understanding. I go crazy when people say, I don't know, what's it, that blue pill? What is that white capsule? Don't you know? You've got to own it. You got to be in on it.
No, I'm working on that. Yeah, you mentioned that when we were talking, that you're gonna be taking all these medications, you need to know what they're for.
Yeah.
And I realized that actually yesterday, as I was packing to get to Pennsylvania from Georgia, driving, which you told me not to do, and I shouldn't have done it because it was 5 hours in a snowstorm driving for 15 hours, but that's okay. I realized that you're not supposed to take certain medications with others, and that if you're going to do your gut stuff, you don't want to put the antibiotics with it right away. And I'm like, ooh, but I don't know if this pill is an antibiotic or not. And it turns out it was, and it was like some kind of bee thing or whatever. But yeah, you have to really know what you're putting in your body. And that goes for everything. Another thing that you were talking about, that you and I briefly talked about, was the mind-body connection, which is why you offer the yoga, specialized yoga, but the mind-body connection for everyone. And there's so much out there with the whole biology of belief, and you know, the information they're now gathering with antidepressants, and how the placebo and the antidepressant given to someone depressed in the control studies, they both work. So what does that tell you? So if you think you're going to get relief, do you start putting yourself in that mindset? It's so interesting.
It is.
So interesting.
It is.
And I'm looking at this disease, which I hate to say I have a disease, but it's disease of the body.
Dis-ease.
Dis-ease.
Yes.
Mhm. Dis-ease of the body as a huge, reset, whatever that, for whatever reason that is. But another thing that I think we talked about, but is in the documentaries and in some of the books that I've been reading, and I think it was on your podcast too, was that between Lyme and Epstein-Barr, these are two underlying things that most of us have, or could have, that we don't know we have. And this could be why we're getting the diagnoses of MS and Parkinson's and fibromyalgia.
Fibromyalgia.
Fibromyalgia, we'll just call it that. Yeah.
Yep.
And then
Dementia.
arthritis, dementia, all these things that all kind of bring on the inflammation, and they're the roots of the tree. And we just don't go far back enough. And were you the one who told me about the plant? I think you did. You told me about the plant scenario, that you don't just, don't just clip off the part of the leaf.
No, I didn't tell you that. I didn't. But it makes sense. You really need to focus on the root cause. And that's what functional medicine is about. See, people don't get that term, but it's root cause. It's investigation of why. Now, integrative approach is more of an open mind to root cause, yet prescriptions. I'm trying to make this very simplified. Whereas conventional relies on medical books that are not really up to date. And in the future, if we focus more on keeping or keeping people well, keep giving them the tools and having them buy into those tools, using those tools, and then looking at a cause. Do you know that magnesium deficiency can be a cause for elevated blood pressure? Because
No.
magnesium relaxes blood vessels.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's outrageous. And hormonal reasons for diabetes, because people are more estrogen dominant.
Right.
You
right.
know, it's an active hormone. And people who have this big belly, you know, you have two different types of fats. You know, if you can just pinch a little around, that's subcutaneous fat. You need that. But it's that hard belly that looks like the quote unquote beer belly. That's visceral, deep fat. That is not only just sticking underneath your muscle, but it's also wrapping around your organs. You know,
And does
people
and
just,
fat holds on to toxins, correct?
oh, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Some
like that
people get,
closet. It's like that closet or that drawer where you're like, I don't know what to do with that. You
Just shut it.
shove it in the closet.
it's work. You know, it's work to be healthy. It is. But you do take the time and effort and the work it takes to take care of your car. And again, why do you need your car? Because it has to be reliable, right? It has to get you from point A to point B. It has to pick up the kids. It has to take you on vacation. It has to bring you to work. But we don't look at our body as that vessel that needs that type of care.
Or spending the money. You'll spend the money. I have one of our employees. Well, I don't have $50 to go to telemed, but you had $50 to go out to the bar, right? 3 nights ago with your friends. Like, what's the priority? How does that work? And I wanted to find out what you think about the Epstein-Barr, the Lyme. Do more people have Lyme than no?
Well, here's the thing. We're not going to be able to really answer that question right now unless people get better Lyme testing, which requires money.
Yeah.
Because they have to have something separate than conventional, just your lab up the street, hospital lab, whatever. Their testing is not as scientific or specific. So we don't really know. Epstein-Barr, we can actually test for that much easier. But one of the problems I have right now is that labs will report antibody levels as greater than the antibody level of greater than maybe 600. So is it 6,000? Is it really, really, you know, the body's making more antibodies? Or is it 601? I mean, 600 itself is bad enough. But so I've investigated this and I've talked to people who are in this arena, and they said it's okay to do the testing to make sure someone doesn't have new antibodies, because there's difference between new and old. And but you have to go by their symptoms. So someone who's got the fatigue, the sore throat, and the swollen glands, that's more of a reactive or, you know, something underlying, smoldering issue. Whereas, you know, you can't just read the lab work, because that could get you into trouble. But, you know, if you're doing treatment and you're doing kind of rounds, several of the herbal treatments that I use are both antibacterial, antiviral. So you're trying, but you've got to calm down the inflammation. You've got to get rid of the excess sugar, high fructose corn syrup, just the crap. You know, if you can't read an ingredient, you shouldn't be eating it. And you shouldn't be putting it on your body either. Everything that
Right.
you breathe, you swallow, you slather on your body, everything has to be broken apart and detoxified. It's
We just don't think about it.
you don't. It's almost sad that I got into this, because every time I look at something, I mean, I become so critical. And
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
and I say like poor people at the grocery store. I'm like, maybe you want to think of getting that over here. It's a better product,
That's so funny. People run from me in the grocery store. If they see me, they hide their carts.
They do, because they know
They think you're going to judge. And okay, I might be judging a little, but not because I'm judging you. I care about you, right? And I don't want you to eat that.
All right.
Or
So here's a big take home. You ready?
Yes.
Fish oil, omegas.
Oh, yes.
Very important.
They're not all made the same.
Do not get it at a big box store. Do not.
Right.
And I have been told by people who know this is the bottom of the barrel. And if you're getting jars that are like good for like 300 days, it's going to be very poor. By the time you get to the bottom of that, they're probably rancid. They're causing more inflammation.
Oh, wow.
You got to get really good quality fish oil. You really, really, really do. And there are several good companies that I work with that I really like. Metagenics, Biotics Research, Zymogen. And then you get the other people that I feel badly for, because they'll say it's so much more expensive, but it's quality. You really want to.
But you'll spend it on a good dinner out, right? But you won't spend it on this supplement.
Yeah. It's hard.
It's a mindset. It is hard.
It's a mindset. Yeah, it's a mindset. But I'll tell you, people don't recognize gifts that they're actually receiving along their lifetime. It's a.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean is, it's unfortunate that I had to experience this illness, this Lyme and mold toxin illness, but it was also a gift. It was a gift that I was able to see that it could change my focus. It gave me that second wind. And it was also at a time in medicine that the owners of practices were getting pinched by the insurance companies. Their productivity went down and down and down. And doctors who own these practices were crabby. They were angry. They had their panties in a bunch all the time. And it no longer became like a group thing that we're all helping people. We're all working for the same thing. Good job. It was the focus became so negative. So as that was happening and I was recovering, I was given that chance to make a difference in a whole different way. And I do have to say that a lot of my GYN patients have become patients of ours in this functional realm, because everybody's got issues.
Everybody. It's just the world we live in today, don't you think?
It is.
It's for your body to keep the homeostasis that it so desperately wants to do and can do for us. We're going to have to help it. And we're going to have to understand what's going on inside of it. So tell me, Cindy, if someone comes to you, what does that look like? Because you've got your daughter in the practice and she said yes after you put your hand on her shoulder at dinner.
Yeah,
I said, yeah, sure, Mom, I'll do whatever you say.
Well, yeah, it was a little tough in the beginning, but we got a coach and we learned, and she was pregnant in a portion of it. So she had only one baby, and then it became ever so clear that this is a better road for her because she doesn't have to worry about paying for daycare. So all of that was happening. But our website is www.pursue, Pursue, wellness.us. And you'll see all about the practitioners in the group. You'll see about our wellness center and things that we offer that way. We do have individual providers that their own entity under the umbrella of Pursue Wellness. We have a nurse practitioner who practices psychiatry. We have a mental health counselor. We have a massage therapist, craniosacral and lymphatic drainage therapist. We have a whole yoga program. We have our sauna. We have our biomat. Now, if people are looking for a consultation or a program to really work on their issues, under our website, under plans, they can read about what we offer. And it's a combined effort. It's medical and nutrition. So it's not just one or the other. I mean, you could just work with Kara as a dietitian, but we focus on the individual person. So 2 people coming to us for weight gain are going to look completely different, because we have to go back with what's going on with your life. Where's your stress? How's your sleep? Are you pooping? We talk about the bathroom all the time. And so developing a plan for them will be different. Someone I may want to do a stool analysis. Someone I may want to do hormonal testing. Some people I may want to do organic acids, which is very complicated. That's a whole program to discuss in and of itself, but everything is different. So people will come, they'll visit with me in the center, or if they're in Massachusetts or Connecticut, they can do some video appointments with us. I do like to get
if they're
people
not
in
in
the
those,
office.
like, so if it's me or someone in California, they can do video. They can still work with you.
They can do video. Right now, I think with COVID, the laws are a bit relaxed. You have to have a certain, there's certain restrictions. Massachusetts is pretty tight about that, but I do have patients from the South. I do have patients from north of us, et cetera. Most of our patients are Massachusetts or Connecticut. Kara carries a license for Maryland and Massachusetts, so she can visit with people and actually do a whole treatment plan based on diet and medical needs under the, she has the licenseship to do that. So we do that. And what's the best part of all of this is our nurse who does coordination of care. Her name is Jean Curtis, and Jean was my triage nurse in gynecology. I didn't steal her. She actually left before I did, but now we're back together, and it's like this dynamic kind of thing. We never had to worry about getting to know each other,
right?
You know, and we just kind of okay, here's how we're doing it. And of course, you know, who opens a wellness center March of 2020 when there's COVID involved? I did.
Not only that, not only did you open, I'm glad you mentioned that. Not only did you open that, your children are grown. A lot of people are retiring now. You opened it at probably the most difficult time to start anything new. And you were still ill. Like, you were still fighting the good fight.
Yeah, I think, again, like anything else, if you don't take it seriously, if you just slack off, you know, some things kind of rear their ugly heads. So it's just important. And I try not to explain too much of my own issues with my patients, but I do tell them I've been there. You know, I have been there. And, you know, what do you do?
Before you got diagnosed, and this freaks me out a little bit, you were dealing with symptoms and stuff for what, 7 years?
Oh, well, let's see.
More than that?
No, less than that. It was from 2011 to 2015. 15.
That's 4 years, but still.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so are you healed now?
I'm getting there. Man.
Yeah, but it's not.
Listen to my earlier podcast. I couldn't string 2 sentences together. It was ridiculous.
I didn't notice that. Really?
Oh, it was awful. It was awful. Couldn't string. It was terrible. It would be like, you can't get the word out. Terrible.
I'm just lucky, Cindy, because before I had my October 3rd shivering attack and sore neck, back, can't sleep on October 3rd, I had already recorded like, I don't know, 10 episodes. So as I was going through all that, I just said, okay, do this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. And I was able, I did a few Zoom calls in between when I felt good, but I had to cancel a bunch. And thank God, because you really just don't make sense. And you go to say something and just babble spews out of your mouth. And my husband's like, what did you say?
The best is when you're talking and you lose track of what you're saying and you have no idea. God. I love that one.
Well, and it's different than the age-related stuff. You know, it's the Lyme part, it affects you. It sounds like it's the same thing. Oh, no, that's just your age.
No, it's not.
It's a little different. It's a little different, I think.
And I think that people use that excuse a lot, or, you know, it's in the family. No, it doesn't have to be. Let's figure out, do you have any nutritional deficits that we could fix? You know, what's going on with your metabolic system? Can we really add some really good fish oil, and can we add some really good curcumin? You know, people will say, well, I shaved turmeric in my whatever. That's just not going to do it. You'd have to be eating tons of that. You've got to get it in a concentrated, bigger volume. That's the whole thing. You know, people say, oh, I eat good. They don't really. That's a lie. People lie. People are liars.
Well, and also our nutrients aren't as nutritious.
Yes, you're right.
As they were 200 years ago. I mean, it's a fact. Our soil a lot of it's contaminated. And we take shortcuts, and we use things with glyphosate, and we genetically modify stuff, and all these things we have to get. And I think that's what the whole pandemic is about, to have us start going back to farmers markets, supporting our community, starting there first, and stopping the big box thing and the gigantic bottles of fish oil, right? I mean, we need to stop that. Yeah, stop
the insanity.
So I have a lot of respect for you, because I don't think I could, if I had the job that you had in the beginning of me having this, I would have had, and many, many people do, quit or lose their jobs because they're debilitated. And you kept going, and then you opened up your own practice to help others with all the information you were learning, and realizing you weren't getting the answers that you deserved and that you needed. So what keeps you going? What do you have, a mantra? Do you have is there something that you do that keeps Cindy Kennedy going to keep fighting this good fight, not only for your own health, but for everybody else that you're working for?
Well, Kara, my daughter, is very level-headed. So when I'm like, she's like, okay, Mom, listen, you're doing the best you can. Let's think of this. Let's try this together. Let's work at that. And I get, it's the support. My husband is so supportive. And, although I'm not podcasting anymore, because I got to the point where, you got to pick something, it's kind of like, we used to make fun of people that had hyphenated last names, and it would mess up the computers and insurance. And we'd say, pick a name, just pick a name and stay the same. So I had to pick one thing. And I just knew that it was going to be better for me to do patient care in the long run. And so I find that it's great that some people have wonderful things to say on a day that I need a pick me up. Like I had a patient who we really got her better from mold illness. And she said, thank you for keeping it simple, because she's been reading books and she's been listening to webinars and whatnot. And she gets overwhelmed very easily, but there's so many treatments that are out there, ozone treatments and IV treatments. And I don't have that to offer, nor do I think I will, because I just need to keep it as basic as possible with a way that people can afford and help them get better. It doesn't have to be all that fancy, you know?
So how do you keep yourself?
Oh,
Like,
well,
do you
like
have
I said,
secrets? Do you have a mantra? Do you have anything?
I try to say every day, I'm just going to do the best that I can today. And if I do the best that I can, even though it's not 100%, then I'll write myself a note and I'll try to do more tomorrow. You know, the longer you do the same thing, just as you said, Wendy, about when you weren't feeling great, but you kind of had a rhythm of doing your podcast, it's the same thing. The more you do it, the more that you get more confident. And this is not easy. I was told a long time ago, do not portray yourself as someone that anybody can come to for any reason. Pick something and be known for that. And then, yes, you end up taking care of other people along the way. Well, Karen and I laugh about this all the time because we've got GI issues, thyroid issues, Lyme, mold. We've got all kinds of different things. But again, if you go back to the basics, what we learn in functional medicine is go to the gut. If you can add some nutrients, magnesium, vitamin D with K2, if you can suppress some inflammation, if you can repair leaky gut, most people are going to improve, you know? And that's all I can do. That's all I can do. And so we're just going to try to wait this crazy COVID crisis out and try to be as safe as possible and see how it comes out at the end.
Love it. Cindy, thank you so much for your time today.
Wonderful.
I know that we had all these notes and how you grew up and all that stuff, but I think what we said today was right on point and right what we needed to hear. You know, you're just a go-getter. You've always been a go-getter. You never let anybody say no to you. And you said, fibro my ass. And
yes,
that kind of says it all.
It does. If you don't think what they're telling you is right, then don't allow that to make or break whatever your life. One of the biggest things that we ask every patient, every visit, is where does your joy come from?
Ooh,
what do you find?
Really?
Oh, every visit. Where's your joy? What's your joy? Now, first of all, what I say on the very first visit, because I am a jokester, I'll say, oh, and where do you get your vitamin J from? And they'll look, well, I don't know what that is. And
I
I'll
don't
say,
know what that is.
Joy. And it's sad when people will go, oh. But then they get used to me asking that and they become more comfortable saying, you know what? I love my dog. I love writing. I love playing the piano, gardening. You know, people will then start thinking, and you got to be joyous. You've got to find joy. Simple things, joy. Simple, simple, simple.
And you're making people probably think about, because you could you're doing these things, but maybe you're not present enough or aware enough or grateful enough to see what's right in front of you that does bring you joy.
Right.
I love that you do that. I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
Vitamin J. Where's your
Vitamin J, baby. Get your vitamin J.
That's probably going to be the title of this podcast.
Yeah. Where's your vitamin J?
Where's your vitamin J? I love it, but that's it. And that also goes with the mind, body, soul, the whole thing. And joy, and you know, they've done all these tests with being grateful and being present and being joyful actually creates health and wellness. And I love that you do that for your patients. Ah, that's so good. So thank you so much. Do you have anything to leave us with?
Oh, what should I know. What did I tell you? When you're actually hoping for a better outcome, but you're never going to get it. Remember, I said, stop going to the pizza shop looking for ice cream, because the pizza shop is never going to give you ice cream.
Right.
Right? Maximize, minimize, and prioritize. So do the best you can, get rid of the crap, and make a list of your priorities.
There you go. Ah, thank you so much, Cindy.
That was wonderful. Fun to talk. Thank you, Wendy.
So much fun. And until next time, breathe in your second wind. Thank you for listening today. I hope that something you heard made you smile, made you think, and made you feel. If these incredible stories empowered you, awakened you, or left you feeling inspired, make sure to share with a friend and write us a review on iTunes so we can continue to change lives through this content. Make sure you tag us while you're listening on our Facebook group, My Second Wind, or hit the link in the show notes to join the conversation. Until next time, go ahead and breathe in your second wind.